This is section 2.2, linear equations. So let's continue with the same idea as undoing what the book is going to do. And again, you don't have access to what the book does, but you should basically recognize the operations and just do the opposite. So again, this is what they start out with, multiply both sides by 6. So this is what happens when you multiply both sides by 6. Subtract 2 from both sides. And then once you simplify the right-hand side, this is what you have. 6x minus 2 equals negative 8. And again, this is the equation that you are going to have to undo. And recognize that in order for you to solve this equation, to undo this equation, is just do the opposite of what the book did. So you look at this carefully, and you see that, you see that this is subtract 2. So what are you going to do to both sides? You're going to add 2 to both sides. Once you do that, this is what you get. Then simplify. Once you're at this point, recognize that this is a multiplication. And notice they multiplied both sides by 6, so you have to do the opposite of multiplication, which is divide both sides by 6. Once you divide both sides by 6, you end up with your answer, x equals negative 1. These go away. Negative 6 divided by 6 is, negative 6 divided by positive 6 is negative 1. Let's go on to the next slide. Again, let's continue with the undoing. So this is what the book does to equations. They start out with something, n equals negative 2, multiply both sides by negative 3. Well, once you multiply both sides, this is what you get. Notice that you get positive 6 on the right hand side. Add 1. Now notice where they put the 1 in this case. Sometimes they do that just to confuse you a little bit. So they add 1, but they don't put it to the right hand side of 3n. They put it to the left side of negative 3n, which is right here. Simplify. So this is the equation that most likely you're going to work with. So let's look up there. So what is that you need to do? You need to undo this operation here. So you need to get rid of this. What did the book do here? They added 1, so you're going to subtract 1 from both sides. Once you're here, subtract 1 from both sides. And then simplify. You end up with negative 3n equals positive 6. This operation that you have between the negative 3 and the n is a product. So you're going to undo a product. You're going to undo a multiplication. So you divide both sides by negative 3. These go away. You end up with just with n. And then 6 divided by negative 3 is negative 2. And that's the answer. Let's move on to the next slide. Okay. Start out with something. This is what the book is doing. We're going to do the opposite. They multiply by 2. Eventually we'll divide by 2. They're going to add 2. This is what they get when they add 2. This is a process that they use to create an equation. So eventually we're going to subtract 2. Simplify, and then you have this. Plus, one more thing here. I'm going to work with the 2y, and I'm going to separate the variable. In other words, I'm going to rewrite 2y differently. And this is what I mean. I am going to take the 2y, and I'm going to break it up as 5y minus 3y. If I was to add these two, I end up with 2y. Okay? But again, let's look at what you're going to have to do. So this is the equation that you're going to be working with. So I look at the left-hand side and notice that these two variables are on the same side and they're separate. So what you're going to do is you're going to do the opposite of separating. Now you're going to combine them. So to combine these two, 5y and negative 3y, you know that you get 2y. Bring down the plus 2, bring down the negative 14 on the right-hand side. To do the opposite of this, which is adding 2, I am going to subtract 2 from both sides. This is what I get. These go away. I have negative 16 on the right-hand side. After I simplify, I have 2y equals negative 16. This operation here is a product. To undo what the book to undo what the book did, excuse me, I am going to divide. So I divide both sides by 2. Once I do that, this goes away, and I'm left with 1y equals whatever this is, and that's why the answer is y is equal to -8. Next slide. This is the last one before you start doing some actual practice problems. Various variables on both sides. This one's going to be a little bit different, but here we go. The book starts out with something, makes it more complicated by, in this case, adding 2, multiplying by 2, and then subtract a from both sides. Again, continuing to make it more complicated. So then you have this, and then at this point, I am going to add 3w to both sides, or the book is going to add a variable to both sides. Once they do that, the equation sort of looks like this, but they might not necessarily give you the equation in this format. They're actually going to combine these two, and this is what you're going to have to solve. You have to do the opposite of what the book did. So we go here. So I'm here. I have 5w and I have 3w. Notice I have variables on both sides. So how do I do this? How do I take care of this? You're basically going to have to take away a variable from either side. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take away the 3w. Why? Because that's the variable that is smaller. This has 5 w's, this one has 3 w's. So just to keep this process in order, steps that I always follow, since this is the smallest number of variables, I'm going to take away that. This variable, 3w. Do you always have to do that? No, you can basically do any process, and if you do not make any mistakes, you should be fine, as long as you do opposite operations, as long as you undo what the book did. So enough talking, so here, let's do the work. So I'm going to get rid of the 3w, so I'm going to add a 3w, so I'm going to subtract 3w from both sides. Here it is. And then on the other side, simplify. I end up with 2w equals -8, because this becomes just 2w. This is gone, and I'm left with 4 on the right-hand side. I am going to do this undo this operation. So they took away 8, they subtracted 8, so I'm going to add 8. I do it to both sides. This is gone. I have 2w equals 12. And then at this point, I am not going to divide this time. I'm just going to use the fact that this is a multiplication. And I'm trying to solve for w. And this is basically what I'm going to do. Just a little bit different. You should be able to follow this. This is what it's saying. 2 times what number is equal to 12? And you know that number has to be 6. That's why w is equal to 6. If you divide both sides by 2, you also get the same thing. Yeah? Just trying to do this just a little bit different. All right, let's go to the next slide. This is where the practice problems are. There's only 3 of them. If you want, you can, as soon as you see the equation, just pause it and see if you can do this on your own, and then just play the video and see if you get the right answer. Okay, here's one. I'm going to do this problem a little bit different. Normally what you would want to do is basically distribute the 6 into this binomial, 6x minus 4, and then just use the idea of opposite operations, and you should eventually get the answer. But what I'm going to do here, I recognize that they're actually multiplying by 6. So I'm going to use the idea of undoing a multiplication, which is dividing by 6. Notice that once I look at these two, they cancel out. There's a 1. And all I'm left with is just x minus 4 on the right-hand side. And on the left-hand side, I have negative 36 divided by positive 6, which is equal to negative 6. So this is the equation that I'm working with. And I recognize that I need to do the opposite of taking away 4. So I'm going to add 4 to both sides. Once I do that, this goes away. And negative 6 plus 4 is equal to negative 2. So that's my x value. I can also write my answer as x equals negative 2, the x on the left-hand side. The real number on the right-hand side, I can also use set notation, which is just this little brackets, and inside whatever the answer is that you get for x. All right, let's go to number 2. So here, I'm actually going to distribute here. I am going to multiply -2 times this binomial. So once I do that, this is what I get. I left the left-hand side alone. Now I'm going to begin the process of undoing the equation. So I look at these two variables, 28x and 3x. And what I'm going to use, what I said earlier in this video, which of these variables is smaller, 3x. So I'm going to get rid of this. So it looks like they added 3x to both sides. So I'm going to take away 3x from both sides. And this is what I have. On both sides, take away 3x. Once I simplify, this becomes just 10. Bring down the 40, -40, and then this becomes 25. And then at this point, it looks like they took away 40 from both sides. So I'm going to do the opposite of taking away 40, which is adding 40. Both sides add 40, simplify, and notice that these go away. And then I'm left with 50 on the left-hand side, 25x on the right-hand side. And then I use what you saw in an earlier slide here in this video. This is saying 25 times what number gives me 50? That number has to be 2. So x equals 2, or I can just use the set notation. And this is the answer to number 2. Let's go to the last problem on this video, which is number 3. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to be looking at the left-hand side, and notice that I'm going to have to distribute here. Once I distribute, multiply 3 times this binomial, I end up with 3 times 2x is 6x, 3 times -3 is -9. Then on this side, I notice that I have 2 variables, -9x plus 6x, so I'm going to combine them. They're separated, now I'm going to combine them. And that's how I end up with -3x. Then at this point, I look at my equation. I have variable on this side, I have variable on this side. Out of these 2 variables, which one is smaller? -3x is smaller. So that's why I'm going to add 3x. If I decide to add 9 to both sides and go through the process, would I still get the same answer? As long as you use the idea of opposites and you don't make any silly mistakes, you should be able to get the correct answer. But anyway, so I'm basically going to add 3x to both sides. You see here, on the other side, this goes away. What I'm left with is -9. And then at this point, this becomes just x, -2x plus 3x is x. And then I recognize that they took away 10 from both sides, so I'm going to add 10. That's what you see here and here. I simplify this, this becomes 0. So I have x equals 1, because -9 plus 10 is 1, or I can use a set notation. And this concludes the video of section 2.2. At any point, if you have any questions, just make a note on your notes and you can ask in class.